Hi everybody, it's Wanda Baader here from Strategize Your Success, and together with my co-host Cynthia Bazin from Smart Chick, we are Hot Tips for Biz. Unfortunately, Cynthia won't be able to join us today because she has taken a vacation day, but I know that she might be watching here and there, so hopefully she'll be able to get a question in if she has a minute in her schedule. Well, today we've got a great show planned for you. We actually have Gabrielle Luoma from GMLCPA, and Gabby will be speaking to us today about outsourcing. This is not your typical outsourcing type of talk. This is actually how to outsource in the new economy and how you can actually hire experts to work in your business, on your business, and it's actually become quite more affordable from what Gabby's told us. So we'll be looking forward to having Gabby talk more about that in just a few minutes. We also have Stephanie Otero here, and Stephanie's company is Above Par Accounting, and we also have our other guest host, which is Gail Foley, and Gail is from One Awesome Community Expert. So, ladies, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, Gabby, we're going to go ahead and give you just a few minutes to just kind of tell the audience a little bit about you and your business. So go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Like Wanda said, I'm Gabrielle Luoma, and I am the sole owner of GMLCPA firm, actually in Tucson, Arizona. We essentially help companies grow. We give business owners the freedom to grow their businesses by taking off the accounting function and help them outsource their accounting departments to us. So we, handle all those complex tax issues along with the daily accounting, accounts payable, accounts receivable, sales tax, and payroll taxes, and things like that as well. But we go to the next level as well and help them really financially plan and consult with them to help them grow their companies to that next level. So that's us in a nutshell.
Great. Well, thank you. Now, it's kind of maybe unusual for our audience members to hear that a CPA is actually teaching on outsourcing. So what led you to becoming an expert in outsourcing?
Well, to be honest, that's essentially what companies are doing when they allow pretty much any service provider to come in and help them do whatever tasks that they actually normally do internally. So I started thinking about it, and really we're the outsourced service provider. And so when we started looking at how we can actually service our companies, other companies better, we wanted to teach them actually how to outsource and how to really use experts to help them increase the value of their company, grow profits, those sorts of things, so that they could grow their companies. So we essentially became outsourced experts by doing it and teaching others how to use us as their accounting department.
Okay, so like accounts payable, accounts receivable, maybe like CFO type services?
Yeah, absolutely. We're essentially the outsourced CFO for several companies, and we take on the strategic planning, the long-term forecast, those types of things, along with down to the details of accounts payable and making sure that you're getting paid on time through accounts receivable. So we take the big umbrella from the actual company and bring it in-house into our company and manage those things and allow for a transparent back and forth information delivery system so that they know what's going on in their business. They're not losing control. It's just that they have experts that actually know how to do it and get it done very effectively.
Okay. And do you find that people ask you to be a resource to them for other outsourcing companies, for instance?
Absolutely. I feel like we're in a perfect situation where we're already dealing with the company's finances. We have that trust factor, and so we are asked on a pretty regular basis who we usually bring in as partners to help us actually grow their company. So we work with financial advisors, marketing professionals, lawyers, all kinds of different aspects of the business so that we can help them meet their goals. And usually it works really, really well because we're partnering with them. The relationship is different. It's more about how to grow together instead of growing apart.
Okay, great. Well, I know that in my business side that I outsource quite a bit. What about you, Gail? Do you do any outsourcing within your business?
My outsourcing is a little bit different, but oh my goodness, if I didn't have certain tools that I use, I have a social media person that does my posting for me in different segments. The time element alone is invaluable. So yes, I think it's awesome that you bring that full plethora of tools to these people. It's wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
That's great. Well, Stephanie, how about you? I believe that you are like Gabby, since you're a CPA. People outsource services to you as well, correct?
Correct, yes. Outsourcing has just become so prevalent in today's technology, the way it has advanced. So Gabby's ahead of the game as far as technology, and I often will go to her for advice or, what program she's using and so forth, because to be really successful nowadays, outsourcing has become such an important part of being in business.
Mm-hmm.
Definitely. And the cost savings, a lot of people try to do it themselves, and I know, Gabby, we're going to talk about that next, is people who try to do it all, but sometimes if you leave it to an expert, they can do something in an hour that might take us 10 hours. Am I correct on that, Gabby?
Absolutely. I mean, you're talking to somebody who essentially bootstrapped their business in the first few years, and you learn very quickly that you cannot be an expert at all things, nor should you be. You really should be focusing on your highest, best use of your time, which means what you actually get paid for, or your unique selling proposition. And so if you're doing things that are outside of your unique selling proposition, it's very likely that you're wasting time and brain power that could be really focused on helping you grow your company in other ways. And so that was something that I had to learn fairly early on, and as you start to embrace those ideas, you start to see how helpful it can be for others. And so that's really why we focused a lot more on educating around the outsourcing. We just feel like it's a very, very valuable tool that really large companies have been doing forever. And the connotation for outsourcing is been very, very negative in that respect. Jobs going to India. But I'm not talking about that type of outsourcing. I'm actually talking about using either local or United States, workers that can come in and be that expert for you, because the barriers with technology have really just been pulled down. So you can find an expert in New York that can help you with a very specific problem, and not pay for a full-time person to do that. So it's very, very expensive to do that. So if you can find those skills in another state, it's just a completely different, ball game. You become somebody who can have the expertise without actually paying for it all the time. So cost savings essentially is one of the biggest benefits of outsourcing.
Okay, thank you. Well, let's take a break here for a second. If you're just joining us, this is Hot Tips for Biz. I'm Wanda Baader from Strategize Your Success, and today our guest expert is Gabrielle Luoma, and she's from GMLCPA, and we're talking about outsourcing. Also joining us are Stephanie Otero and also Gail Foley. And they are our guest hosts today, bringing in some comments into this conversation about outsourcing in your business. And so far we've talked about how outsourcing can save you money. And as business owners, we're all about saving money. But the best part about it is, as we've talked so far, is bringing experts that know more than you about a particular thing into your business to help you out. Now, Gail, I'm going to put you back on here to tell us a little bit about, you had mentioned that you outsource some things, maybe not particularly like a CFO type situation, but you said that you outsource different tasks. What got you started? At what part of your business did you start seeking help outside of yourself?
Well, the social media part, that just overwhelms me because I don't feel like I'm on target with as much as I should be. And so last year I met someone at one of my business events who specializes in SEO and brought her over, and she immediately started zoning in on the different things that I needed to do. And I said, well, wait a minute. I don't want to do those things. Can you just take them all? So she had two different ways to do that for me. One was to teach me how, and the other was for me just to completely turn it over to her, which was my preference. And then the other thing I learned was the time that I spend getting my interviews scheduled was daunting. It was back and forth emails, back and forth. And so I didn't actually hire someone, but I found an incredible resource that does the scheduling for me. So it's sort of like outsourcing, but just not that personal connection. So yes, you just, the time that you get back by outsourcing is just invaluable.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Well, thank you for that. And Stephanie, do you outsource anything in your business that you don't want to do?
Yes, absolutely. You know, I learned the hard way. I think Gabby mentioned that when she first started out too, and I made the same mistakes that, you know, many business owners make, where we think we can do it all because we're trying to save money, and in the end it's really costing you money because you know, your time is not spent in the most efficient manner where it could be where your expertise is. So yes, web design is not my thing. You know, I'm a numbers person, so I definitely outsource that. I've been looking into hiring a virtual assistant recently because I realized that most of my time is being spent not where it should be. I'm spending a lot of time on mundane tasks and not being able to focus on the really core of my business and what I really love doing. So outsourcing is definitely a part of my business. It's what I do for many of my clients. You know, we essentially become their accounting, bookkeeping, CFO, tax experts. We become their right hand as far as that's concerned. So it's definitely something that every business owner should look at.
Yeah.
Thank you, Stephanie. Well, if you have any questions out there, for those that are joining us live, please be sure to use the Q&A section of the Google Hangouts to ask your question. Gail will be looking out for those if anybody out there wants to get an answer. So Gabby, one of the things that you said that you'd be talking to us about today is transitioning your business to the new economy. So can you tell us exactly what you mean by that, transitioning to the new economy?
Sure. So I think in past years, and I can even say this specifically for, you know, the public accounting field, is that a lot of us are generalists. We become good at a lot of things, but you give up a lot when you become good at everything because you really don't get great at specific things. And so I think the world is going towards being an expert in the field that you actually work in. And just like, I mean, doctors have discovered this years and years ago that, you know, if you become a heart specialist, you're going to make more money because you are a specialist. And so the new economy is about becoming an expert. It's about becoming the person to go to for that specific thing. Now, it could be a specific industry, it could be a certain type of service, it could be dealing with a certain type of client, you know, whether it be personality type, it could be female versus male, it could be so many different things, but you become experts in that field. And when people are out there looking for these days, because of Google, because you can pretty much Google anything and get answers for anything, people want to really be sure that they're going down the right track, and that really takes an expert. So the general information is out there. It's the expertise and the trusting relationship and being really sure if you're going in the right direction has I think it's been taken up a notch. So the new economy, that's basically what I'm referring to, is things have changed and people are now looking for that expertise instead of generalist ideas.
Okay, so I know, like for me and my business, we do online marketing, and that's what I specialize in. So that covers a variety of different things, such as social media, SEO, website development, and personally, I don't have a degree in all those different things, and I bring people in that I work with on my team that are experts in those particular areas. And I've found it very resourceful, to outsource that way in my business, because it's a win-win situation for everybody, like you'd mentioned before. I win as a business owner because I'm bringing experts to work in my business to help my clients, and my clients win because they get, not just me as a coach and consultant, but also the experts that we get to work on their particular things. And like you said, you can't know it all. You'd have to go to college for a long time, and then by the time that you graduated with all the degrees that you'd need, you probably would have to start over again, because it would be irrelevant because things are constantly changing. Don't you find that's how it is, Gail? Things are always changing out there in the world?
Absolutely. Ever changing.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it's just like every time we get, like Google plays nice for a while, and then we get a new algorithm from there, or Facebook decides to, impact things by doing something different with their algorithms. It's like a constant struggle, and that's just one little part of people's business.
Right. Well, and specifically for the small business owner, you have tax law compliance, you have sales tax law compliance, you have payroll tax law compliance, you have software that's continually always changing. You have new ways of doing things, and so for the small business owner, there's a plethora of things that are constantly changing in their business. Just in the financial part of it, you add marketing to that too, and other legislative things that might be coming down the pike. You just never know. But we're dealing with a ton of compliance, and I think that as a small business owner, having that expert help you with those things is so much better than trying to learn it all yourself, because you can't know it and run your business and grow it and get new clients and learn how to do all of that as well. So certainly expertise is needed in all those areas because of the constant change.
Right. Well, I know another thing that you were going to help us out with today was talking about automation and also outsourcing. So obviously there's a lot. The great thing about things changing is that we have a lot of opportunities with automating certain processes or procedures or tasks that we have on a daily basis. But what did you mean exactly on your end about the automation and outsourcing?
Well, I think Gail actually alluded to it in her last conversation, was that she essentially has some scheduling software that handles a lot of the scheduling for her now, which that's a lot of the automation. You really don't need a person to actually schedule those types of tasks. I mean, the software that's out there now, you can book me. I mean, there's all kinds of them. I heard that Google came out with one as well. So there's a lot of different scheduling software that you can use now to essentially automate that process. And then you're talking about outsourcing. I think outsourcing really requires, depending upon what the task is, a higher level or knowledge skill set that's needed. And it could be very, very repetitious things, but someone who could make some general judgments about those repetitious things sometimes. So it just depends on the task that you're actually looking at, either automating or actually outsourcing. But automation certainly should be looked at first before you go to that next step. But just realize that automation is really for those very repetitious, lots of back and forth conversations that probably could just be cut down with one single tool. It's amazing these days what's out there. So.
Yeah. Well, can you give us an example of an automated process that you use in your daily work with clients?
We have a lot of them. We use, for instance, Bill.com. Bill.com is a service that we use to do accounts payable and accounts receivable. And essentially, we've been able to, bring that whole accounting department by using this one software. And really, it's fairly basic once you get into it. It's really scanning or faxing in these, let's say, an invoice, and we set up the category that's supposed to go towards in their income statement or balance sheet, whatever it is, and then get the approval of the client to pay the bill. And it's all done through the software that we use essentially on a daily basis. And so it's something that's cut down on a lot of back and forth. It's really simple. They fax or email the document in. It goes to one location. You can collaborate within that tool to see if it's, do we need to argue this bill, or is it right, or is it correct, and then go forward and just pay the bill. So, I mean, that when you take the old way of doing it, where you had to mail the invoice to us, we would cut the check and then mail it back. I mean, the time that we've been able to save just on using that software alone has just been amazing. And it has actually been able to step up the next level of what we can do to outsource and be efficient and effective at doing it. So that's just one tool. And there's, many, many others that we use on a daily basis, but that's just one. And it's been pretty amazing.
Oh, thank you. When I think of outsourcing, it's ways that we can outsource in our lives that are not necessarily just for business, but also things that we could hand over to somebody to make maybe our business life easier from the personal perspective. Like a housekeeper, for instance, could be a form of outsourcing because it's something that you could do, yes, but it's something that you don't maybe have the time or the desire to do. Stephanie, can you name something in your personal life that you'd either like to outsource or you do outsource right now?
Well, you mentioned housekeeping, and once I hired my first housekeeper, that's a no-brainer for me from here till eternity. Who wants to spend their time cleaning, right? We can spend time with our families or doing something that's so much more important. So housekeeping for me is a big one. We have a gardener as well, because same for my husband, he doesn't want to spend, his weekends, especially it can get really hot where we live here in California. So he'd rather spend time with us as a family, and I am all for that because it's more time that we have. Nowadays we're all so busy, so the more time that we can have doing the things that we really enjoy doing, I just think the better off we are, both business-wise and personal.
Yes. Definitely. We can concentrate and stay focused a little bit when we're not so distracted with this long laundry list of things that we have to do all the time, especially as women, because there's just, as women, we have a tendency to take on a lot more than we probably should. Now, Gail, what about you? Is there anything on a personal level that you like to outsource or you do outsource currently?
Oh, yes, I outsource that housekeeping. Can't stand the dust. I can deal with the clutter because I can pick that up, the dusting and all that stuff. No. And now, recently, my husband's retired, and so he does a whole lot of stuff until lately, with a complete shoulder replacement, I've had to hire out my grandson to take my husband to some appointments and relieve me of some of the things that my husband no longer can do for the time being. So, yes, you have to outsource in your personal life to make your business life so much more happier.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Well, we are rocking and rolling here. It's I've got 1:24, and there's still another question that we want to talk about. Again, this is Hot Tips for Biz, and we're talking about outsourcing today with Gabrielle Luoma from GMLCPA. Now, Gabby, you had also mentioned that you would talk to us about best practices with virtual help employees or contractors. Can you enlighten us a little bit on what you mean by that?
Well, the best practices really does depend on the type of services that are going to be provided. But I would say, communication is going to be key from the start, because whatever the task or the skill set that's needed, you'll need to be very specific as to what you would like to see have done. Just like, let's say personally, if you want your house to be cleaned, you need to tell them exactly what you need to be, what needs to be cleaned. So if you have one bathroom or you have two bathrooms, and how would you like those to be cleaned? Well, I, want the toilet scrubbed and the bathtub scrubbed and all those different things. So it's very similar in the fact that, let's just, for instance, I want a virtual assistant to do a specific task, let's say send out cards. So we want them to, my clients to receive thank you cards on a regular basis, or a birthday card or whatever. So you set up a time schedule, you give them their budget and how they're supposed to do it and when, and just lay out the process for them. So, and that's the communication. You have to lay out the process, and then, well, that didn't work. Let's try something else. And so, and I guess that's the best practice for me is like, well, that didn't work right the first time. Let's figure out how to make it better next time. And always be aware that you're going to be continually tweaking this process so that it's better and better every time. And once you actually get the process of the outsourced service down, then I would say document it, because then you can actually, that person may be only available for 10 hours a week or for, certain time periods. So then you can duplicate that position again. So that's the whole idea of outsourcing the monotonous tasks, is those tasks can be very well documented, and you can duplicate efforts by adding more virtual assistants on there. So I also think that a communication system like Asana or a Yammer account or whatever you can use to communicate together, and have it in a situation where you can go back and look at notes and you can add more information, or say, no, never mind, don't do that, do this. Just have a communication hub will be really, really important going forward with your virtual assistants. Yeah, so honestly, communication's key. You have to be a good communicator, and that's whether you have employees, contractors, children, a husband.
All of the above.
It's important.
Well, yeah, it's so from what I'm hearing from you, it's make sure you're communicating, document the process. So maybe if the person that you hired to do the outsourcing doesn't work out, you have it documented so that you could share it with potentially another person, or maybe if the volume gets too high for just one person to handle, then you can always bring on another virtual helper. Yeah. to get you over that hump. And just because something didn't work the first time doesn't mean to scrub that idea, but to continue trying to refine that task so that it works out for both you and the outsourcing person. Is that what I get from you so far on that particular area?
Very good, Wanda.
Okay, I was paying attention.
Very good.
Okay, well, Stephanie, have you, we've got just like 2 more minutes, but just to wrap it up, it's like, let's share it. Have you ever outsourced something and it was within your business that was just the best thing that you ever did? And if so, can you share it with us?
Outsourcing in my own business. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Well, the web design, marketing side of things, that's not my expertise. I think one of the best things you can do for yourself when you're a business owner is know what you don't know. I tell my clients that all the time, know what you don't know. And once you have a list of the things that you don't really know, those are the things that you can start then looking towards outsourcing. Right. Or automation, as Gabby had mentioned as well. I mean, I think that's one of the best tools you can do for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Great, thank you. How about you, Gail? Has there been anything that you'd say was really hot on your list that you were just so glad that you outsourced out there?
I haven't yet had that experience, but I have had the experience of networking with fabulous women and just awesomely tuned into everything like you three are. And I think that outsourcing can be also a networking stream. that can just bear incredible fruit for everyone that you connect with. And that's been my experience, more so than actually having an oh wow outsourcing right now.
Okay. Well, ladies, we're at 1:30. I'd like to thank you so much for joining us. For those of you that are out there in our audience today, for listening to our talk about outsourcing. If you're catching us on the replay and you have any questions, please put them into our Google page here that lists the event. And we'll be glad to get somebody back to answer that question for you, like Gabby. And I'd like to say thank you, Gabby, so much for joining us today and for being our guest expert.
Thank you so much.
And thank you, Stephanie, and also Gail, for joining us as being guest host. You guys are always amazing to talk with, and it's been my great pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, this is Wanda Baader from Strategize Your Success, and together with my co-host, Cynthia Bazin from Smart Chick, we are Hot Tips for Biz. We're here every Monday at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time, 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, bringing you the top experts in the business community. So please be sure to join us next week. Thank you so much.